The Peasants' Revolt was a rebellion against Egyptian conscription and taxation policies in Palestine. While rebel ranks consisted mostly of the local peasantry, urban notables and Bedouin tribes also formed an integral part of the revolt, which was a collective reaction to Egypt's gradual elimination of the unofficial rights and privileges previously enjoyed by the various classes of society in the Levant under Ottoman rule. As part of Muhammad Ali's modernization policies, Ibrahim Pasha, the Egyptian governor of the Levant, issued conscription orders for a fifth of all Muslim males of fighting age. Encouraged by rural Sheikh Hashim al-Ahmad, the urban notables of Nablus, Hebron and the Jerusalem Jaffa area did not abide by Ibrahim Pasha's orders to conscript, disarm and tax the local peasantry. The religious notables of Safad followed suit. Hashim and other leaders of local clans rallied their kinsmen and launched a revolt against the authorities in May 1834, taking control of several towns. While the core of the fighting was in the central mountain regions of Palestine, the revolt also spread to the Galilee, Gaza and parts of Transjordan. Jerusalem was briefly captured by the rebels and plundered. Faced with the superior firepower and organization of Ibrahim Pasha's troops, the rebels were defeated in Jabal Nablus, Jerusalem and the coastal plain before their final defeat in Hebron, which was leveled. Afterward, Ibrahim Pasha's troops pursued and captured Qashim in al-Karak, which was also leveled. Baruch Himmeling and Joel S. Migdal argue that the revolt was a formative event for the Palestinian sense of nationhood, in that it brought together disparate groups against a common enemy. These groups re-emerged later to constitute the Palestinian people. The revolt represented a moment of political unity in Palestine. However, the ultimate intention of the notables and rebel leaders was to force out the Egyptian army and reinstate Ottoman rule as a means of restoring the Ottoman-era standards that defined the relationship between the government and the governed. These standards were made up of the religious laws, administrative codes and local norms and traditions that were disrupted by Egyptian reforms. Background: in consolidating his power, Muhammad Ali, the rebel ruler of Ottoman Egypt, was modeling his autocratic rule on the bureaucratic organization characteristic of modern European states. Like earlier rulers of Egypt, Muhammad Ali desired to exercise control over Greater Syria, both for its strategic value and for its natural resources. Not only did Syria have abundant natural resources, it also boasted a thriving international trading community with well-developed markets. In addition, in Ali's strategy, Syria would serve as a captive market for goods being produced in Egypt. More importantly, the extension of Egyptian control over Syria was desirable because it would serve as a buffer state between Egypt and the Ottoman Sultan in Constantinople. Ali was attempting to become independent of the Ottoman Empire. A new fleet and army was raised and built under Ali's leadership, and on the 31st of October 1831, his son Ibrahim Pasha launched an invasion of Syria, which initiated the First Egyptian-Ottoman War. For the sake of international appearances, the pretext for the expedition was a quarrel with Abdullah Pasha of Acre. Ali alleged that 6,000 Falahin had fled to Acre to escape the Egyptian draft corvée and taxes, and he demanded their return. Ibrahim Pasha advanced through Palestine, occupying Haifa in December 1831, and then using the city as his primary military base. Events preceding the revolt, Egyptian economic and political policies alienated four broad and influential factions in Palestine, namely the Effendiyat of Jerusalem, the bulk of the major clans in Jabal Nablus, the clans of the Jerusalem hinterland, and the Bedouin tribes in the areas of Hebron and Bethlehem. In late 1832, Qashim al-Ahmad, leader of the Qashim clan and the chief of the Nahir of Jamarin in Jabal Nablus, was dismissed by Ibrahim Pasha from his additional post of Mutasalim of Jerusalem after having served a few months in that office. The official reasoning for Qashim's dismissal was his advanced age. He was replaced by his son Muhammad al-Qasim, who was consequently removed from the more powerful post of Mutasalim of Nablus. Afterward, Sulayman Abd al-Hadi of the Arab-based Abd al-Hadi clan, a prominent ally of the Egyptians, was appointed to Muhammad's former post in Nablus. The move was a power play by Ibrahim Pasha and the Abd al-Hadis, who were quickly gaining prominence in the region. Their members had been appointed to head the eyalet of Sidon and a number of its districts. The move provoked the Qasim clan's anger with the Abd al-Hadi family and the Egyptian authorities. The Abagosh clan, based in the Jerusalem Ara village of Kiryat al-Inab, traditionally served as toll collectors for the Jerusalem-Jaffa road, and were increasingly considered by Ibrahim Pasha to be extortionists. They were targeted by the authorities in 1833. The clan's leadership was arrested, including their head Sheikh Ibrahim Abagosh, and were temporarily sentenced to forced labor in Acre. Relations between the authorities and the Bedouin tribes of south-central Palestine were also antagonistic. Traditionally, during Ottoman rule, the Bedouin were allowed to collect tribute payments from travelers and the inhabitants of the area in return for services to the state. Ibrahim Pasha saw the Bedouin as raiders who exceeded their privileges and abolished this practice. He also imposed additional conditions on the Bedouin, primarily the requirement of transporting grain for Egyptian troops in return for the right to graze livestock. In 1833, the Dura-based Amra tribe of the Hebron Hills, which was headed by Isa Amra and Abd al-Rahman Amra, were subject to a military campaign by Ibrahim Pasha. The Abagosh, the Ras Kaka-based Simhan clan, and the Amra tribe were essentially at war with the Egyptians. The imposition of new taxation categories that were a departure from both secular Ottoman law and the traditionally accepted Islamic law drew local Muslim anger at the authorities. However, the principal point of contention between the authorities and the notables of Jerusalem and Nablus was the conscription order by Ibrahim Pasha on 25 April 1834. That day, Ibrahim Pasha convened with all of the clan leaders from both cities to demand the drafting of 1 out of every 5 Muslim men of fighting age. The order would begin with the conscription of 200 men from Jerusalem, a combined 3,500 men from Sanjak al-Quds and Sanjak Nablus, and 500 men from Hebron. By May 1834, the only prominent ally of the Egyptians in Palestine was the Abd al-Hadi clan. According to a chronicled account, during the meeting, Ibrahim Pasha attempted to address the reluctance of the notables in sending their kinsmen and peasants to the army, asking that as Muslims at war with Christian nations, is it not necessary for us to have a big standing army? The notables replied in the affirmative, but asserted that their men were already trained in the art of war and like the generations before them, they would willingly shed blood for their fatherland and defend their country from the enemies of our religion. Ibrahim Pasha countered that their fighters would need to be professionally trained, telling them, war is not the place for a herd of useless men.